Part 1. The Call That Shouldn't Exist. 3 years ago, I buried my son. At least, that's what I believed. The phone call came on a rainy Tuesday morning. A police officer's voice. Calm, professional, detached. Mr. Harris. I'm sorry to inform you there's been an accident. Those words change a person forever. By the time I reached the hospital, everything was already over. They told me my son Daniel had died instantly in a car crash on the interstate. No last words. No goodbye. Just paperwork. And silence. I remember standing in the hospital hallway thinking something strange. A father should never outlive his child. But life doesn't follow the rules we expect. Daniel had only been married for 2 years when it happened. His wife, Megan, was shattered. At least that's what everyone believed. She cried through the funeral. She held my arm like she couldn't stand without support. She told everyone Daniel was her whole world. And honestly, I believed her. After the funeral, I promised myself one thing. I wouldn't let Daniel's family struggle. Every month, on the first day, I sent Megan $1,200. No questions. No hesitation. She always thanked me. Sometimes she even called just to say the kids were doing well, or that she missed Daniel. Those calls kept him alive in a way. Or so I thought. 3 years passed. Life never fully goes back to normal after losing someone like that. But you learn to live around the hole they leave behind. I kept my routine simple. Morning coffee on the porch. Walking my dog around the neighborhood. Occasional visits with Megan and the kids. Daniel's son Tommy had started looking more like him every year. Same smile. Same stubborn little frown when he concentrated on something. Seeing that both warmed and broke my heart. One afternoon, I was trimming hedges in my yard when my neighbor Paul walked over. Paul had lived next door for nearly 20 years. He was the kind of man who noticed everything. Nothing unusual about that day. Until he said something that made my stomach drop. "Hey, Tom," he said casually. "Yeah? You still sending money to your daughter-in-law every month?" I wiped sweat from my forehead. "Yes. Why?" He hesitated. The way people hesitate when they're about to say something they're not sure they should. "Well," he said slowly, "I just got back from Nashville last week." I nodded. "So?" Paul looked straight at me. And I swear to God, I saw Daniel. For a moment, I thought I misheard him. "What?" "Your son," Paul repeated quietly. I saw him walking out of a diner downtown. The hedge clippers slipped from my hand and landed on the grass. "That's not possible." Paul shrugged. I thought the same thing. "But Tom, I've known that kid since he was 16. He paused. That was Daniel. My mind started racing. "No," I said quickly. "You must have mistaken someone else." Paul shook his head. "Same scar above the eyebrow." My heart skipped. Daniel got that scar falling off his bike when he was 12. It was small, but impossible to miss once you noticed it. Paul continued. "He was with a woman, blonde, didn't look like Megan." My head spun. "That's impossible," I repeated. "I buried my son." Paul's voice softened. "I know you think you did." He took a deep breath before finishing his sentence. "But Tom, if that wasn't Daniel," he pointed down the street, "then someone out there has a twin walking around with your son's exact face." That night I couldn't sleep. Paul's words echoed in my mind. I saw him in Nashville. Impossible. Yet something inside me wouldn't let it go. Around midnight, I opened the old wooden box in my closet. Inside were Daniel's things, photos, his watch, and the police report from the accident. I had never read it carefully before. Not really. Grief has a way of blurring details. But as I started reading that report again, something strange caught my attention. Something I had somehow missed 3 years ago. And suddenly, for the first time since the funeral, I began to wonder if my son had ever really died at all. Part 2. The report I never really read. I sat at my kitchen table long after midnight. The police report lay open in front of me. For 3 years, it had stayed inside that wooden box without much attention. At the time, I couldn't bring myself to read the details. Knowing my son was gone had been enough pain already. But now, Paul's words echoed in my mind. I saw him in Nashville. I adjusted my glasses and started reading carefully. The report described the accident in dry, official language. Single vehicle crash. Highway 65. Vehicle burned heavily after impact. I skimmed until something made me pause. Identification confirmed through driver's license recovered at scene. Driver's license. Not dental records. Not fingerprints. Just a burned wallet with Daniel's ID. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Was that normal? I kept reading. Another line caught my eye. Body severely damaged in fire. I remembered the officer saying the same thing at the hospital. At the time, I didn't question it. Grief doesn't leave much room for logic. But now, the thought struck me like a hammer. I had never actually seen Daniel's body. The funeral had been closed casket. The explanation had seemed reasonable. Now it felt convenient. I leaned back in my chair. The kitchen clock ticked loudly on the wall. 3 years. For 3 years I had accepted everything without asking questions. Because who questions death? The next morning I called Megan. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, Tom," she said sweetly. She always called me Tom instead of Dad. Said it felt more natural. "How are the kids?" I asked. "They're good," she replied. "Tommy has soccer practice tonight." We talked for a minute like usual. Normal conversation. Then I asked the question that had been burning inside me. "Megan, do you ever think about that day?" There was a pause. "Which day?" "The accident." Her voice changed slightly. "What about it?" "I was just wondering. Did you ever see Daniel after the crash?" Another pause. Longer this time. "No," she said. "They told me the same thing they told you. Too badly burned. Closed casket." Her answer came quickly, almost rehearsed. I felt something tighten in my chest. "Megan," I said carefully, "do you remember where Daniel was driving that night?" "To Nashville," she said immediately. I froze. "To Nashville?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "He had a meeting." That word echoed strangely. Meeting. Paul said he saw Daniel in Nashville. 3 years later. Who was the meeting with? I asked. She hesitated. I don't remember exactly." "You don't remember?" "No," she replied quickly. "Work stuff." Something in her voice didn't sit right. I changed the subject before she noticed. "Anyway," I said, "I just wanted to check in." "Of course," she replied. We hung up a minute later. But now my hands were shaking. Because 2 things had just become very clear. First, Daniel had been driving to Nashville the night he supposedly died. Second, Paul had seen someone who looked exactly like Daniel in Nashville. That afternoon, I drove to the police station. The same officer who handled the case had retired, but the department still had the file. A young detective brought it out and placed it on the table. "You said this accident was 3 years ago?" he asked. "Yes." He flipped through the pages casually. "Looks straightforward." "Maybe," I said quietly, "but something about it doesn't feel right." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" I hesitated for a moment. Then I said the words out loud for the first time. "I think my son might still be alive." The detective leaned back in his chair. Most people would laugh at a statement like that. But instead he asked one simple question. "What makes you think that?" I took a deep breath. Because someone just told me they saw him, and for the first time, the idea didn't sound impossible anymore. Part 3. The first crack in the story. The detective studied me quietly for a moment. His name was Detective Ramirez. Young, maybe early 30s, but the look in his eyes told me he'd seen enough strange things to take unusual stories seriously. "You said someone saw your son in Nashville?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "My neighbor Paul. He's known Daniel since he was a teenager." Ramirez nodded slowly. "People mistake faces all the time." "I know," I said. But Paul recognized a scar above Daniel's eyebrow. Ramirez leaned forward. "What scar?" I pointed to my own forehead. "Bike accident when he was 12. Needed 6 stitches." Ramirez scribbled something in his notebook. Then he flipped open the accident file. "Your son's car burned completely," he said. "That's what the report says." "And you never saw the body?" "No." He looked back at me. "That part is unusual." My stomach tightened. "Unusual how?" "In most fatal accidents, the family confirms identity, even if it's difficult. But they told me it wasn't possible." Ramirez nodded. "They may have been trying to protect you." He tapped the file. "But this case, it's strange." "How?" He turned the report toward me. "Look here." My eyes followed the line he pointed to. "Witness reported vehicle already on fire when found." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means no one actually saw the crash happen." I blinked. "So, the car could have been burning before the accident?" "Possibly." A cold feeling settled in my chest. Ramirez flipped another page. "There's also something else." "What?" "The car. What about it?" "It was registered to your son, but the body inside wasn't officially identified." My throat tightened. "Then how did they confirm it was him?" Ramirez pointed to the report again. "Driver's license in the wallet." I stared at the words. Driver's license. That was all. Ramirez leaned back in his chair. "Mr. Harris, I'm not saying your son is alive, but I'm saying this investigation was rushed." "Why?" He shrugged. "Car fire cases often are." Silence filled the room. Then Ramirez asked the question I hadn't expected. "Did your son have any financial problems?" "No," I said. "At least, I don't think so." "Any large debts?" "Not that I know of." Ramirez tapped his pen thoughtfully. "Life insurance?" My heart skipped. "Yes." "How much?" $500,000. He raised his eyebrows. "And who received it?" "Megan." Ramirez slowly closed the file. "That's interesting." My mind started spinning. $500,000. And for 3 years, I had also been sending Megan $1,200 every month. Ramirez spoke carefully. When was the last time you saw your daughter-in-law? 2 weeks ago. Did she seem comfortable financially? I thought about it. About the house renovations, the new SUV in the driveway, the expensive vacation she posted on Facebook. At the time, I had assumed she managed the insurance money well. Now, it felt different. Ramirez stood up. I'll tell you what, he said. I can't reopen a 3-year-old case without something solid, but if someone really saw your son, he handed me his card. Fine proof. What kind of proof? A photo. A location. Anything. He looked me directly in the eyes. And if your son really is alive? He paused. Then someone committed fraud worth $500,000. My chest tightened. Fraud? Ramirez nodded. And possibly something much bigger. I drove home slowly. Every memory of the past 3 years felt different now. Every conversation with Megan. Every monthly payment I had sent. Every tear she shed at the funeral. By the time I pulled into my driveway, one thought kept repeating in my head. What if my son never died? That evening, my phone rang. It was Paul. Tom, he said. You sitting down? Yes. I just remembered something. What? The diner where I saw Daniel. My grip tightened on the phone. What about it? Paul took a deep breath. I checked my credit card statement, and the name of the place popped up. My heart pounded. What's the name? Paul said 3 words. 3 words that made my blood run cold. Because it wasn't just any diner. It was a place known for one very specific thing. A place where people went when they didn't want to be found. Part 4. The place where people disappear. What's the name? I asked Paul again, my voice barely steady. There was a short pause on the phone. Then he said it. Riverbend Roadhouse. The words hit me harder than I expected. I knew that place. Almost everyone in Tennessee did. Riverbend Roadhouse sat on the edge of Nashville, far from the tourist streets and bright lights. Truck drivers stopped there. Travelers passing through. People who didn't ask questions and didn't like being asked any either. It was the kind of place where you could sit at the counter for hours and no one would remember your face the next day. A place where people disappeared. Are you sure? I asked. Positive, Paul said. I checked the receipt twice. My mind was racing. If Daniel had really been there, it meant one thing. He wasn't hiding by accident. He had chosen that place. That night I barely slept. Every piece of the puzzle was starting to feel heavier. The burned car, the closed casket, the insurance money, and now Nashville. The next morning I called Detective Ramirez again. He answered quickly. You find something? Yes, I said. A diner in Nashville. Riverbend Roadhouse. There was silence on the other end. Then Ramirez spoke. That place has a reputation. So I've heard. People who go there usually want to stay off the radar. My heart pounded. So what do we do? Ramirez didn't hesitate. You go there. Me? Yes. Why not you? Because if I show up asking questions, everyone shuts down. He paused. But a father looking for answers. That's different. 2 days later, I was driving toward Nashville. The highway stretched endlessly ahead. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than they should have. I kept thinking about Daniel, about the day he learned to drive, about how proud he looked when he bought his first car, about the way he used to laugh when something truly surprised him. Could a man really fake his own death? Could my son do something like that? I didn't know, but I was about to find out. Riverbend Roadhouse looked exactly like I remembered. Old wooden building. Neon sign flickering in the window. A row of trucks parked outside. The smell of fried food hit me the moment I stepped inside. Inside, the place was half full. A waitress poured coffee for 2 truck drivers. A jukebox played a slow country song in the corner. No one looked up when I walked in, except the man behind the counter. I sat down on a stool. "Coffee?" the waitress asked. "Yes, please." My voice sounded strange to my own ears. She placed the cup in front of me. I looked around slowly, trying to see if any face looked familiar. Nothing. Just strangers. After a few minutes, I turned to the man behind the counter. "Excuse me," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "I'm looking for someone." "That's usually how it starts," he replied dryly. I slid a photo across the counter. It was an old picture of Daniel, taken a year before the accident. The man behind the counter glanced at it casually. Then something strange happened. His expression changed. Just for a second. But I noticed. "You know him?" I asked quietly. He hesitated, then shrugged. "Lots of people look alike." My chest tightened. "You've seen him," the man sighed. "Look, mister." Tom, he said. "You didn't hear this from me." My pulse started pounding. "But yeah," he tapped the photo. "That guy's been here." The world around me suddenly felt very quiet. "When?" I asked. The man leaned closer. "About 3 months ago." 3 months. Not 3 years. 3 months. That meant one thing. My son wasn't just alive. He had been alive recently. Was he alone? I asked. The man shook his head. "No, with a woman." My stomach dropped. "Blonde?" "Yeah." My mind immediately jumped to Megan. But the man behind the counter added something unexpected. "She wasn't his wife, though." "How do you know?" He smirked. "Because I heard them talking." "What did they say?" The man lowered his voice. "They were arguing." My heart pounded. "About what?" He looked straight at me. "About the money." And in that moment, for the first time, I realized something terrifying. If Daniel was alive, and Megan knew about it, then the person I had trusted for 3 years might have been lying to me from the very beginning. Part 5. The truth begins to surface. The man behind the counter slid the photo back toward me. "I shouldn't be telling you this," he muttered. "But if that's your kid, you deserve to know." My hands were trembling slightly. "What did you hear them arguing about?" He wiped a glass slowly while thinking. "They were sitting right there," he said, pointing to a booth near the window. "They didn't realize I was close enough to hear." My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "What did they say?" The man leaned closer. "The woman kept saying he needed to stay gone." My chest tightened. "Stay gone?" "Yeah," he nodded. "She told him if he showed his face again, everything would fall apart." The words hit me like a punch. "Did she say why?" He nodded slowly. "The money." I gripped the edge of the counter. "What money?" "The insurance." My stomach dropped. The man continued. "She said if anyone found out he was alive, she'd have to pay it all back. $500,000. Plus everything I had sent her. 3 years of monthly payments. My vision blurred for a moment. And my son? I asked quietly. What did he say? The man shrugged. He didn't look happy about it. What do you mean? He kept saying he wanted to come home. My breath caught. Home? Yeah. He said he missed his dad. For a moment I couldn't speak. Daniel had said that 3 years after he supposedly died. But the woman wouldn't let him, the man added. What? She kept telling him it was too late. My hands tightened into fists. What woman was this? He shook his head. Never saw her before. Not Megan? No, definitely not his wife. My mind raced. If it wasn't Megan, then who? Did they leave together? I asked. No. They argued for about 20 minutes. And then? Your son walked out first. Where did he go? Parking lot. What about the woman? She stayed behind. The man paused. Looked nervous. Why? Because she made a phone call. My heart skipped. What did she say? He thought for a second. Something like, he's getting weak. He wants to go back. My stomach twisted. And then? She said one more thing. What? The man's voice dropped to a whisper. She said, we can't let his father find out. My chest felt tight. Because now it wasn't just a suspicion. It was a plan. Someone had convinced my son to fake his death. Someone had taken the insurance money, and someone was afraid of me learning the truth. I paid for my coffee and stood up. Before I left, the man behind the counter spoke again. You really didn't know your son was alive? No. He shook his head slowly. That's cold. I nodded. Yes, very cold. I stepped outside into the Nashville air. The evening sun was starting to fall behind the buildings. My mind was spinning. Daniel was alive. That much was clear now. But 2 questions still haunted me. Who was the blonde woman? And why would she go to such extreme lengths to keep Daniel away from his own family? As I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed. It was Detective Ramirez. I answered immediately. I just found something, he said. What? You asked about your daughter-in-law earlier. Yes. Well, I checked the insurance records. My stomach tightened. And? Ramirez took a deep breath before answering. The $500,000 policy. Yes? Wasn't the only one. Cold fear spread through my chest. What do you mean? There was another policy, Ramirez said. Taken out just 6 months before your son's accident. My grip tightened on the phone. How much? Ramirez's next words made my knees feel weak. $1.8 million. And the name listed as beneficiary was someone I never expected. Part 6. The name on the policy. I leaned against my car, gripping the phone tighter. 1.8 million? I repeated. Yes, Detective Ramirez said. And the beneficiary? There was a short pause. Ramirez exhaled slowly. That's the strange part. My heart pounded in my chest. Who is it? A woman named Laura Bennett. The name meant nothing to me. Do you recognize it? Ramirez asked. No, I said. Not at all. According to the paperwork, she was listed as Daniel's business partner. Daniel had never mentioned anyone named Laura. My mind immediately went back to the diner. The blonde woman. Ramirez, I said quietly. I think I know who she is. I told him everything the diner owner had said. The argument. The phone call. The woman trying to convince Daniel to stay gone. Ramirez listened carefully. When I finished, he spoke again. That sounds like her. What do you mean? Lavra Bennett isn't just a random name. My stomach tightened. She has a history. With what? Insurance fraud. The word echoed in my ears. Fraud. She's been investigated twice, Ramirez continued. Both times connected to suspicious insurance claims. And Daniel? That's what we need to figure out. My chest felt heavy. Was my son part of the scheme? Or was he trapped in it? Where is she now? I asked. We're still checking, Ramirez replied. But if she was in Nashville 3 months ago, she's probably still around. Exactly. Ramirez paused before asking his next question. Do you want to find your son? The answer came immediately. Yes. Then we do this carefully. The next morning, Ramirez and I met outside Riverbend Roadhouse. He was dressed casually, trying not to look like a detective. First rule, he said. We don't confront anyone yet. Why not? Because if Daniel really faked his death, he could panic and disappear again. My stomach twisted. I had already lost him once. I didn't want to lose him again. We walked into the diner together. The same waitress was working. The same jukebox hummed quietly. But today something felt different. Ramirez scanned the room calmly. Then he leaned closer to me. Don't look right away, he whispered. What? Back booth. My heart stopped. Why? Because there's a man sitting there. He paused. And he looks exactly like the photo you showed me. My breath caught in my throat. Slowly, I turned my head. Just a little. Enough to see the reflection in the window. And there he was. Older, thinner, but unmistakable. My son, Daniel, alive, sitting in a booth, 3 years after I buried him. My legs nearly gave out. Ramirez grabbed my arm quickly. Easy. That's him, I whispered. I know. What do we do? Ramirez watched Daniel carefully. Wait. For what? For him to notice you. My chest tightened. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. If Daniel saw me, he might not be happy to see his father. And the reason why was sitting right across from him. The blonde woman, Lavra Bennett. Daniel finally looked up and our eyes met. Shock filled his face. Lavra tried to pull him away, but it was too late. After 3 years of lies, the truth had finally caught up with him.